Welcome, everybody. We're going to get started. I'm Wes Warren. This is Greg Stanley from Whitehall Management. And today we're going to talk about transition solutions. And the idea today is that we're going to present all the different types of transition options that you have. And hopefully by the end of this presentation, you'll have a good understanding of which option fits you best.
You tend to think of choices like downsizing your life. Here you can see here on the screen we have a tiny house. Maybe there's something even tinier than that, I don't know. But shrinking your lifestyle, investing, both leading up to your retirement and in retirement, saving more prior to your retirement, these are the things that will affect probably your choice of transitions. A lot of different possibilities. We're going to talk about the use of associates, the selling of your practice, partial sales. We're going to talk about all these ideas. So much of it will come down to how much money you have and where you put it.
There's a lot of different options out there. Greg, you've talked years and years about different ways to invest your money. Some are more risky than others. In today's market, they all seem risky, is the problem. There's no real good solution. Everything comes with risk. That risk means it risks your retirement income.
Great article yesterday talked about the phenomenon of how people have run from stocks to bonds to real estate and back and forth, and even precious metals. And the conclusion of the article was that isn't the case anymore. If stocks tank right now, you're just about done. Real estate isn't the risk you think of. We think of real estate somehow, or these different investments as a way to win or lose money. With real estate, you can end up insolvent. In other words, you can't even sell it. It's illiquid. So there's, like Wes was talking about risk, there's a risk of losing your money, and you might say the risk of losing access to your money because it's tied up in real estate.
So what would you say, Greg, in terms of a doctor looking at retirement, and what's the dollar amount you would say, okay, you're fairly safe here? Let's say you got a doctor approaching 70. How much money would you like to see in assets to where you would say, okay, you're fairly safe to just be done?
Well, I think you said that in a great way. Money and assets, they're different things. Assets might be money in the future and maybe not. We don't want to forget the great axiom that in the end, the value of something's based on the ratio of buyers to sellers. Who knows what that will be when you're really ready to call on that asset. So how much do you need? That's your question. Well, as you could imagine, there's a lot of variables about how long you're going to live. That one is really throwing a lot of people. It's real popular now on the internet or YouTube for clickbait to show movie stars back in the old days and today, and maybe today they're still alive, but they're 92, or they died and they were 90. People are living longer. There's research that shows the more education you have, the longer you'll live. So our doctor's probably going to live quite a while. So how much money you need, how long you're going to live, and how good you are at managing that. Here's a variable that's really thrown people for a loop. At one time you tried, whether you did it or not, you tried to live off your interest. Well, or your yield. That's pretty much a thing of the past. We've almost gone a decade without real significant yield. Kind of the brokerage world learned how to wheedle in there and get make about as much off our pension plans and our savings, about as much as we make. But I'm not criticizing them because studies show that without them, we actually lose money. We actually go negative. But still, this idea that you're going to live off your interest or you're going to see your estate grow, that can happen, but it's not like it used to be. You used to could have your cake and eat it too. You could have bonds which are called a near liquid investment, and you could have a yield on it, a liquid yield. It would pay interest. So you'd have a near liquid investment and a liquid yield. Now, probably one of the better things out there is real estate. It's not liquid and it doesn't have a liquid yield, not until it's sold. Really leaving us with a quandary. For so long, we just turned back to our practice, made more money, saved more money. In retirement, I got to tell you, it's about living off your cash. It's kind of like one of those survival movies where everybody in the world almost has died, and you go along and they go from grocery store to grocery store and find a little canned food. Well, eventually you run out of that. I think the hope in retirement is you die before you run out of cash. But that's what we're looking at. We've got to make our cash last. So we're probably going to need to really cut lifestyle in the ways that really count. You kind of have to give up the Mercedes and the huge home, unless you're just loaded.
Right.
We talked to an orthodontist the other day with $30 million. Yeah, you should have gone into orthodontics. Maybe it's not too late. Look into that. Yeah, he probably can keep his life. But I would say, Wes, $2 to $3 million in cash and maybe another million or two in assets, your practice, your building, and your home. That's probably the minimum for somebody that can really cut down their lifestyle. And when I say cut it down, my hope for you, for us all, is that we'll have good enough markets in real estate and practice sales to get some cash out of that.
That leads us to really the uncertainty we have seen since 2008. Obviously, the stock market has gone up over the last decade, but at this point, we're kind of positioned for a real uncertainty in the stock market. And obviously, that leaves the real estate market and everything else in flux.
On top of that, we have new forces. We haven't seen inflation technically in a decade. Well, it's back. Gold has finally responded. Gold has almost doubled in the last 3 months. Silver, same way. We have political forces that through the media are deemed credible, but are full on socialistic, communistic, coming up like as a new generation to say, no, we need the government to take care of us. And my comment isn't whether that's good or not or bad, but it'll change your life in retirement. It'll change your life in practice. There's also what I call unnatural disasters, changes in healthcare that will affect you. Let me give you an example. At one time, the influence or the thrust of politics was to be the first to get your name on a national health care bill. And then we had Obamacare. Well, everybody gets insurance. But now people are learning that though they have insurance, it really doesn't pay for very much. And medicine just kind of compensated by raising prices and medicine costs. I saw an article here just a couple of weeks ago that showed most bankruptcies now come from healthcare costs that were covered by insurance. In other words, people were left with massive healthcare bills after insurance quit paying. And so as of right now, the hope is that it will hold. And if you can make it across the line and get on Medicare, that won't happen to you. Well, every day, fewer doctors take Medicare. So let's just hope that, like I said, let's hope that somehow holds out. So another unnatural disaster, as you see here, would be the real estate market collapsing. It's so hard to predict. The COVID hit and real estate actually went up. Don't ask me why. And as far as real estate going up, you can watch it on Zillow. You can see what your house is doing on Zillow. And, I'm watching my house and so forth. And COVID's given us a massive unemployment rate somehow, and real estate goes up. Believe it or not, with COVID, for a time, there was talk of 40% unemployment, which would have been double the Great Depression of 1929. Well, now it's back to 10% and falling. So that's a very good sign. So these are some of the other things that you have to think about. I would like you to think about all of these things when you consider the idea of letting go of your practice. Explain. For years, there's been talk of people saying, oh, you need to sell your practice now because later there'll be nobody to buy it, or the market for practices won't be good. Well, that may be true. Maybe by selling it today, you'll get another $50,000 or $100,000. But by selling it too soon, you're walking away from millions and millions of dollars in earned revenue.
Yeah.
Okay, more unnatural disasters, disability. As you're going to see, part of our plan is using associate doctors to stabilize yourself against all sorts of disasters. So, yeah, disability, divorce. A thing I've noticed about practice, you know, a doctor gets in practice, does well, does really well, joins the hunt for prestige, gets the car, the home, the country club, the airplane, gets all of that, and then has a divorce, and they spend the rest of their life remembering the days when they had those things. In other words, they have those things as long as they don't trip. Hopefully that hasn't happened to you. Then there's the one last natural disaster. And go on YouTube and look at before and afters of famous people and see how withered they become. And this is after massive amounts spent on Botox, skin stretching, and plastic surgery, which I think is the same thing. In fact, there's a picture of these two guys at the bottom here. Look at them. They could use a little. So this finally is waiting. Our suggestion is to get yourself positioned for the time that this finds you. You'll hear people in the gun control community talk about, come and take my gun from my cold dead hand. Well, we say, come and take my practice from my cold dead hand. Well, this is what your hand looks like when they come and take your practice.
I think doctors have to understand why we've presented all this stuff before we even talked about different transitions, is because this is what all the threats that await you when you don't have an income anymore. These are all the things that are laying in wait to really threaten your existence. And if you don't quite have enough put away, or you live too long, it is a disaster.
I think that the COVID was valuable from the standpoint of people coming to grips with the idea that the unexpected, the unthinkable is not the impossible. Even though it's unexpected, incredible. I mean, we were sitting here just doing business, and then all of a sudden the whole country is shut down.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So like Wes is saying, these are all the things that can happen to you. We're going to present some solutions. I'm sorry to say, our best solutions do not stop you from getting old and dying. Those still happen. So let's talk about what you can do. All you're doing is buying time. And you don't just want to buy time to sit on the couch and veg. You want to buy time to live. One approach is what we call selling and walking away, or sell and walk. This one, you find somebody with money and sell them your practice. If you're lucky, they've got enough to buy it with cash. Maybe they get a loan. Hopefully you don't take a carryback. This is, to me, the highest risk of all of the directions. And you might say, why, Greg? You're clearing yourself of the practice. It's done. Well, if you sell it to the wrong person, here's an example. A rich, spoiled brat He was at a riot last night burning police cars. A rich, spoiled brat buys your practice with his dad's money, and he pancakes because he's not that sharp, he's not that into it, he's not that dedicated or disciplined, and he pancakes. He wants, or the dad wants, their money back, and they claim that you misrepresented the sale. Or the doctor just couldn't quite get it. You know, to get into practice, let's face it, you're academically capable, but there's a whole set of skills you've got to take on later. Maybe you don't catch up in time and the sale fails and they have then a misrepresentation. And you can say, misrepresentation, I showed him everything. Well, they want to hang on to that, you know.
Yeah, the problem is they're going to go bankrupt, and they need a scapegoat, and they're looking for money, and they're looking for access to cash. They know you walked away with $500,000 or whatever. It is kind of we do see it a lot, and you have to be careful. You got to make sure that the person you sell to can make it financially.
The longer they are with you, or the longer you're with them, the weaker their claim of misrepresentation. And really, not just that, the longer you're with them, the more likely they'll actually make it. We have a saying, and you got to remember this: whoever buys your practice, you need them to succeed. You can't take on this thinking that, well, they bought it, now you deal with it. It doesn't work that way. You got to make it. They got to be successful, and you got to help them. The next one we call sell and stay. This one is based around the idea that you'll sell the practice, or you'll sell the practice and continue as an associate in your own practice. It's a dream of a lot of people. They get the full amount out, and I get to stay and work as much as I feel healthy and capable of working. So you'll stay and work 2 days a week or 3 half days or whatever. Sell and stay. This one is not as risky as stay and walk, but you'll see it's only a matter of time. With the sell and stay philosophy or approach, the problem you run into is people tend to drive you out. Even though it's in the contract, you wrote it in there that you've got the right to be there and practice a couple days a week. They get tired of hearing about your clinical prowess. They get tired of hearing how much the patients love you and how long they've been with you and how great you are. And they want you gone. And you might add in that contract that some of your key staff have to stay. Well, these doctors will try to make their life and your life so miserable, you'll want to be gone. And so
usually it starts at about a year that you start to get the vibe like, I'm not welcome here anymore.
Yeah, by 2 years.
By 2 years, it's so bad that you'll leave. Yeah, gladly leave. Also with sell and stay is the corporate world. We see a lot of dentists mess with this idea and actually do it, pull the trigger on it. So I want to comment a little bit about what doctors have to say about selling to corporate dentistry and staying on and working 2 or 3 years to fulfill that contract. I would say the vast majority of them hate it. They hate having to stay and watch their practice be run by somebody else, and for them to have to hit numbers that are full throttle. I mean, they're full throttle numbers. There's no backing off on a corporate sale. So most of our doctors tend to not like it, and you probably, flirted with this idea if your practice is doing rather well, where you've had it evaluated, and they'll give you, 20% more than you'd get on just a sell and walk away sale. But you have to stay on and work a couple years and work as an associate to unlock that extra 20%. And most people didn't like that experience of working that extra couple years. So That's the con. You get the good money, and you get to work and you get paid to do it. But I would say I probably wouldn't, some of these associateships, I'm seeing it stretched out to 5 years even on younger doctors. That's not such a great deal. I mean, 1 to 2 years would be my max on that kind of deal.
Just a thought, if you're going to take this approach, don't sell all of the practice. Don't give up control. So you might sell 49%, that's just a thought. Okay. Now, stay and slow down. This one comes in two versions. One is stay and slow down by yourself. Just go to 3 days, then to 2.5 days. I had doctors in California working 2.5 days, really killing it, doing great, taking home $50,000 a month. They slow down. Stay and slow down. A couple things you got to get ready for is you got to pay your staff for a full week, even though they're not working a full week. You brought them on, promised them a job, and now you can't make them part-time unless they want to be part-time.
Right.
So the other approach is to stay and slow down with an associate, meaning you bring in an associate and you slow down. The associate could be part owner, but they're not the whole owner. That's a sell and stay. That was option number 2. This one, they might have some equity, but they don't have
Control.
controlling interest. Yes, that's right. So stay and slow down is one of my favorites. That one,
It's a very popular option because doctors have, at the end, when they do want to sell, they have an associate there to sell it to.
they're there to keep the wheels on the track. The owner is. And there's a feeling, well, there's always a way to find a market for your associate, whether it's with insurance or with same-day service or some special offering that makes patients go, yeah, I'll see your associate, sure. While you, hopefully, have picked up on the idea of doing bigger cases. You got some great implant placement or sedation or something, and you're doing big cases so that even though you slowed down, your production didn't slow down. Maybe your enjoyment of practice actually has gone up when this associate is there for stay and slow down. So stay and slow down with an associate, or stay and slow down without an associate. Now, I've had people who did this, stayed and slowed down without an associate, really for quite a number of years. They saved money. They had to take the hit for the most part when they vacationed. They just took the hit.
Right.
So I've seen that work. It's very simple, straightforward. I'm not here, Well, what about I'm not here, don't you understand? Stay and slow down with an associate means you have to learn some of the art and science of associateships. Okay, let's look at another option. What we call the sustainable posture. This one is built around you. It's like stay and slow down, but you don't stay very much. You might not stay at all. It's just you out of the picture. And it will be, in most cases, more than one associate, maybe 2, 2.5, or 3 associate doctors. And you check into the practice typically once a week for a couple hours. Make sure your leader has things under control, that the culture isn't slipping, patients aren't complaining. It's a good thing about the internet. You can watch what's going on from your Google reviews. But we have people who have done this. They embrace the idea. Now, some of them honestly had no choice. Their health failed them, the kind of health that would keep them in that uncomfortable position, bending over the operatory. And they kept their practice going through their associate doctors. Some of them went on to set records like $400,000 or $500,000 a month without being there. That's right, you heard me. Those are giant practices. Now, somebody says, why do I need a giant practice? Well, the profit isn't quite as rich in an associate office. Doctors that do 400,000 or 500,000, they're able to keep typically 15% of that money. And what that comes down to, it's about what you'd make if you had one incredibly profitable solo doctor practice. So here's your approaches. Sell and walk, highest risk, and it's got a built-in illusion that selling has freed you. It only frees you if the person that buys it is incredibly capable. Sell and stay. This one works, but it tends to work for a year to 2 years. Then they want you out. Stay and slow down with an associate, without an associate. Without an associate, that slide we showed you of the withered old hand, that one finally catches up with you. So stay and slow down with an associate is more sustainable. Finally, where you just bring in associates and make them successful. I'm going to tell you a secret right now for associate success. Your new job, so your old job was doing great dentistry. In the sustainable posture, your job is creating associate opportunity, where associates come in and go, this is great, wow, I just get to show up and treat patients that that love me, and I go home and I get this big paycheck. If you can do that, you can run a practice the rest of your days until you experience some kind of dementia or something. So stay, slow down, or sustainable posture. These are for people that master the associate world. This is what Wes and I work on. This is what our life is about, mastering associateship, creating opportunity. See, at one time, people thought of associates as people to be exploited. Get an associate, make them sign an ironclad contract, then work them to death. You know, give them a little bowl of gruel and work them to death. That didn't work because they found that no matter how well we wrote a contract, they could find a lawyer that could break it. And in the event they couldn't, they just left. Sometimes with patients, sometimes without them. We call it retire in practice. It's those two choices, stay and slow down and sustainable, are the retire in practice program. This is where you say, all right, I get it. I'm going to master associateships. The idea being to get you off the hamster wheel and ultimately have a practice that can run without you. You know, it's funny, some doctors, that actually frightens them. They actually spent a part of their life afraid of a practice that could run without them until they realize they're going to really need a practice that runs without them. Okay. We're going to build an income machine, is how we look at it, to provide for you during your retirement years. Associates produce it, they love it. Now, let's face it, you can't exploit them. They have to get a great paycheck. If you do this right, you can hope to keep roughly 15% of what they produce. We suggest that you have several associates, and the reason being so that you don't have a de facto partner. That's somebody who finally takes on the traits of a partner, even though they've never been presented equity or sold anything. They just start complaining when you change the color of the office without asking them. They start acting like they own the place. So we have several associates. So like I said, it's built around creating opportunity. One of the target numbers that creates opportunity for associates and for you as a withdrawing, retiring doctor is to pay associates 25% of their production or their collectible production. Now, some of you will find that you have to modify this. Maybe you'll pay 28%, but they have to pay their labs. Or maybe you pay them 27%, but they have to pay their CE. There's some negotiation, but here's the problem. If you pay too much, And the reason is you don't have enough opportunity, meaning I don't have enough patients for them, so I got to pay them more, higher percentage. The concept has failed. You want to be able to provide patients, great staff, a nice facility, so that they can produce. You keep 15%, they get 25%, everybody goes home happy. Figuratively speaking, you become partners, not with the associate, but with your staff and your leadership team. So yeah, there's a partnership here, but it's not with the associate. The associate is there for opportunity, and we make sure they get opportunity. We're going to keep them busy, and between your team, your leaders, and your coaching, they're going to produce good. We need them producing a certain amount. You can't have an associate producing 20 or 30,000 a month and you come out ahead. They aren't going to like it. There's nothing in it for them. There's nothing in it for you except overhead. All right, so who's going to replace the push that you provide for production? You, the owner, are the pusher. Right now, you push for production opportunity. For example, a patient's in operatory number 2. They obviously need a crown. They're willing to stay and get it done. The associate wants to schedule them out a month or whatever. You would run in and say, no, let's get that done now. We can get it done. You're pushing for opportunity. You don't push the patient, you push the practice. If you find something, you work to get it done. Wes always talks about having had a payroll. If you have to meet a payroll, you learn how to push. And you're professional enough, you don't let it show that that's what you're doing. But when there's production that can be done, you make sure it gets done. So who's going to do the pushing? The answer is your staff. This associate doctor, he or she may become a great clinician. They may get fast. They may have high quality. They may have good people skills, but they tend to not be pushers. We have a handful in all of Whitehall history. There's a handful of doctor pushers, but it comes from the staff, and it's done through incentives. We say that the associate practice is predictable, meaning you can make it successful. You can become a master of associate opportunity. But it's also unforgiving, meaning there's certain mistakes, certain numbers and ratios you don't violate. Let me give you an example. Let's say, we're just kind of used to in life negotiating. Somebody goes high, we go low. They go high, not as high, we go not as low. Well, if you tell the associate, we're going to pay you 25%, their tendency is to say, well, okay, let's make it 33. And you say, okay, 30. Well, and let's say you agree on that. It becomes kind of cast in stone going forward. All the associates will hear about it and ask for it. So you can't pay one associate one amount and the next associate a much lower amount. So you don't make that mistake. What you have to show the associate is that in this office, you're going to have real opportunity for production. You're going to show them that they're going to make more money at 25% than they'll make in a corporate office at 30% or 33%. So, and you have to ask them in the end, isn't it how much you take home? They like to talk about their percentage, but it's more important. And when Wes and I are talking to a prospective associate for a practice, we have this talk with them. It's not about your percentage. If you made 5%, but took home $400,000, wouldn't you rather have that than 33% and take home nothing, or $100,000 a year? So it's unforgiving, meaning you got to follow the guidelines. You got to follow the rules. We're going to show you how to tap into the hidden practice, or it's one of the secrets of associates. There's a practice within a practice, meaning it's overlooked. And that practice is the same day practice. It's what you can get if you offer patients to stay and get work done. I don't care if they're there as a new patient from marketing or a returning patient where dentistry is found, or maybe where it was found on the last hygiene visit. But you say, would you like to stay and get that done? It's unscheduled. If you start producing unscheduled work, most of you would probably like to interrupt me and say, Greg, I would do that now, but I don't have time. Well, that's what the associate gets. The associate can almost be fed almost with unscheduled treatment. You've got to remove the toxic elements in the practice. Toxic elements might be somebody at the front desk with a really bad personality, a hygienist who's absolutely bonkers for soft tissue treatment, sells everybody $1,200 worth of deep scaling. These are things that drive patients away in droves. An owner doctor tends to have the charm and maybe a bump from marketing, can survive toxicity. Associates can't. You can't keep them busy in a toxic environment. So these are some of the things that we think about when we're talking about creating the sustainable practice. Sometimes practices the market just isn't there. You're not going to get great money from your practice. That's another reason to stay in practice. Do you realize if you keep your practice and shrink it by 50%, 4 years of that, you'll take more money out of the practice than you would if you sold it at top dollar. So you might say, okay, Greg, what if I'm starting too late? I want to get an associate. I want to slow down. I want to position myself for a trajectory that will leave me practicing, for another 10 or 12 years. Whereas before I thought I would just quit and walk away poor. Is it too late? Well, that's a good question. We have a lot of doctors practicing in their 80s, but you don't have to practice. We have doctors who've walked away and turned it over to associates 90 days from the time they contacted us. 90 days. So if you think you're starting too late, I guess my question is, do you take things serious when you do start them? So what now? Are you going to fight, or is it going to be flight? If you're going to fight, that means you're going to stay and build this practice, get an associate, make them busy, fix everything from the paint and the carpeting to the website. You're going to update yourself in your marketing, or are you going to sit there and let it all just deteriorate? While you still have a handful of people that still love you and come in, and they used to bring you cookies, but now it's softer foods. So what's it going to be? Let's talk about this, fight or flight. You're going to be Sears or Wards. After World War II, the Great Depression was coming to an end, or nobody was really sure about that. They thought it was the end of the Depression. And Sears doubled down, added stores, started to expand. Wards, on the other hand, Montgomery Wards, some of you older doctors hearing this will remember Wards, they thought the depression or recession would return. So they contracted. Then they could no longer compete. Wards could underprice them, outclass them, outmarket them, and Wards ultimately withered and died. Wards withered, Sears thrived. Now, ultimately, that story doesn't end that way. That's how it happened then. All right, Whitehall has a solution. You're sitting here and you're looking at all these possibilities. Our solution is to bring an associate doctor, spin up the practice, and some of you are thinking, how can I do that if with all of my charm And my suave, how is it that I'm sitting here withering? How am I going to spin it up? Well, you're going to have to spin it up. Staff are going to have to step up. We're going to get an associate. We're going to get the marketing right. And it's not as hard to do as it used to be, thank goodness. And we're going to get patients flowing through there. And our solution is we're going to show them how to sell dentistry. Maybe you don't like that word, but that's the easiest way to explain it. We're going to get patients buying dentistry more like what they should. So that's our solution. With an associate doctor, you can stay in practice for years to come. From a financial standpoint, you still have your lifestyle. You can still save money. You're still part of this game. We have what we call a retirement feasibility analysis. And with this, we can tell pretty close when and if you should retire, when it makes sense. Wes?
And what option you should choose. So a lot of you, hear this. There are 4 main options, and somewhere in there, there's an option that fits you and your situation. And so what we offer is this analysis where we talk to you, talk about your practice, talk about your savings, and kind of point you in the right direction of the different options that might fit you best. So that's what we do.
Here's a doctor who's incredibly successful, who's worked with us for years, and he associates who produce more than some of our best owners in Whitehall. Another one, same thing. Dr. Michael's 62 years of age, incredible production, killing it, enjoying it. He's living the dream.
He just now brought in his first associate. So
Right.
We're just now getting to the phase where he is now bringing on an associate. So that's kind of where we're at with him. But we did build a practice up to incredible levels where he's probably the biggest solo doctor producer of what I would consider normal dentistry, real crown and bridge type of dentistry, months of 400,000. And these are not large cases. This is not sedation. This is not implants. This is just regular dentistry. One person. It's amazing.
Dr. Hester, doing great. That's one of Dr. Peterson's, I believe.
Yep.
Still at it, doing great.
Adding practices. He's actually gone the other route, which wasn't up there, but where you actually add more offices and create a corporate dentistry, essentially. And he's doing great with it and creating a practice that, really he doesn't have to work anymore.
And age isn't a factor for him anymore. It's not about how old he is.
Right. Okay, so what we offer is a call with Greg and myself, and what we do is we go over your own situation, own practice, cover everything to do with your practice and your retirement. We look at your liabilities, your assets, your overhead, practice valuation. We'll talk about that. The net of the practice, and kind of help you with a retirement guideline and help you pick which option might fit you best. It typically takes 30 to 45 minutes, and that's what we offer. So for those of you that want to do this, what we're offering for the first 5 doctors that call us, we're offering it at no charge. After that, there will be a charge. It's $97 until Tuesday, and then we're not taking any more people past that. So no exceptions on that. Now, those of you who are interested, they worry about if they're going to be the first 5 or not. So what we'll do is for today, if you get online or email Lori and schedule and do that today, we'll guarantee that you'll be at no charge. But if you wait until tomorrow, it'll be $97 until Tuesday.
It doesn't matter if it's $97, it's worth it. You're gonna learn things that will help you for years to come.
Absolutely. And then there's a few bonuses for getting on the phone with Greg and myself. So first bonus is the A to Z hygiene recall system. This is to end failed appointments and to get hygiene growing again. Many practices are plagued with last-minute cancellations and openings in hygiene, broken appointments. And the idea here, what we did is we had a mastermind where we had the biggest practices in the country talk about their hygiene recall system, how they did it, what they said, the emails that went out, what exactly did the emails say, what day exactly did they go out, when did they call, did they use cancellation fees, how much, 35, is it 55? All those things are in this. It tells you exactly how to run the perfect hygiene coordination program in the nation. This is as tight as it gets. So that's bonus one. It's one of the best things we've ever made. Number two, our automatic case acceptance system. Anybody that's thinking about adding an associate, this is a must. This is the biggest problem you're going to run into with adding an associate. One is patient flow. But if you're going to back out and kind of do the retirement and practice program, you're going to kind of have some patient flow to give them. The biggest problem you're going to run into is case acceptance. On this program, what we've done is we've created a system that kind of runs without the owner. And the owner is not essential in this system. It's all about the staff helping develop the cases. So these two programs, the value in those is literally in the thousands. So if you want to jump on the phone with Greg and myself, you have to call before Tuesday to receive these two bonuses. So don't wait. If you call today, we'll make sure it's free. Don't wait. If you're thinking about retirement, you have questions about it, Greg and I are happy to walk you through it and talk about feasibility and timelines. So many people, this really binds them up about when exactly they should retire and do they have enough saved and how should I do it? Should I sell? Should I bring on an associate? There's a lot of variables in terms of operatories, patient flow that dictates the proper choice for you. So don't wait.
I hate to say it, but some of you are about to make the biggest mistake of your life, or I would definitely.
You certainly could. It doesn't hurt to jump on the phone with us. We can certainly help you. All right, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.